So Kent is doing the whole looky what the Bible says and talking about what he believes. And honestly, that kind of thing is more in tune for Faith Around and Find Out Friday. So we'll be done with Kent for a while and move on to someone else. I promise you all, we will get back to him. In the meantime, who else can we go to other than the spawn of his loins?
This guy's a total disgrace.
Yep, it's Eric Hovind. Eric took over Kent's ministry and his church when Kent was in jail for quite some time. Our resident demon should give a standard greeting.
Nice to meet you, bitch.
Now, Eric is a disgusting waste of humanity for some of the things he has said in the past, but the only good thing he has done is completely separate himself from a worse piece of trash, his dad. I won't get into how much money he's spent through God Quest Inc. for his home and other personal assets. There's actually too much to go over. Let's just say the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. But let's just end his introduction by saying that he is so bad at all of this that he was outwitted by an 11-year-old kid in a debate at Portland State University.
How does it feel to be such a total failure?
So his short 6-minute video is called Undeniable Proof That the Earth is Young. I beg to differ. I think it's undeniable proof that Eric is uneducated. Now, this is going to be fast and loose with him because he is fast and loose a lot. Anyway, but with the short video and ACD is clipping for me. You ready, ACD?
Let's get it started!
First clip, please.
I look at Niagara Falls, and even secular reports of Niagara Falls would say it's been eroding for 12,300 years. Well, why hasn't Niagara Falls eroded further than that? Why is it at 12,300 years? It seems to me if the Earth, as we know it today, or North America, especially that area up there, has been there for more than 12,000 years in a stable setting, which they would say it has, Niagara Falls should have eroded way farther than that. Niagara Falls is evidence, I would say, of a young Earth. It's eroding at about 1 foot per year, depending on water flow. Some people say up to 10 feet, depending on how hard that layer is that it's cutting through right there.
We took this one on with Daddy, so yeah, this makes no difference. Just because Niagara was formed in the Ice Age doesn't mean the Earth itself is the same age. Saying that is silly and generally grasping at straws. If this is how we are going to be going to start things off, I don't have much hope for this. I'll keep this one a bit short, but the Ice Age that ended about 10 to 20,000 years ago dug out the Great Lakes and caused the waterfall in the Niagara River. It's been eroding ever since. Please, Eric, give me something I haven't heard before.
But that's a whole other problem. Erosion rates today. They've measured how long it would take to erode all the continents. Like to get North America to erode down to nothing, where North America is now at sea level. They say that would take about 10 million years. Well, if America and North America should be gone in 10 million years, how would we have rock that is still above sea level in North America, supposedly more than 10 million years old? It should have been eroded down to nothing by now. How can we have fossils inside those rocks that are supposedly way more than 10 million years old, still above sea level? If erosion would have taken these things off the continents in 10 million years, how do we still have fossil dinosaur bones, supposedly 65 million years old, still above sea level? It just doesn't make sense.
Wow, that was stupid. In a matter of a few minutes, you could find the answer, Eric. Tectonic uplift. But at least we have something new to talk about.
Let's do this.
So, this is a bit similar to how mountains form. In fact, it's the same method in essence. Tectonic plates shift and push underneath one another. As the plates collide, one will slip under the other. At the coast, this causes an immediate and drastic upheaval of rock that forms mountains like the Rocky Mountains and the Appalachian Mountains in the United States and Canada.
Nailed it!
But the material doesn't just vanish. No. The mountains that form are half because of pushing up, and the other half because the plate on top is getting sort of crumpled in and up.
Kinky.
but the rest of that material goes under the continent. That pushes the land up, and the land then erodes away from, you guessed it, rivers. Well, and wind. So dinosaurs die, get covered in mud from a mudslide or ash from a volcanic event, or just buried in some sort of other way, quickly, tar, swamp material, you name it. Other time, the softer material turns to rock. And no, Eric, that doesn't happen in a few centuries. It takes a long-ass time. Eric seems to think the Earth doesn't change at all, and tectonic plates aren't moving. Either way, either that or he's too ignorant to actually do any research.
Keep going.
So, one plate moves under another plate. The material keeps going, lifting the continent up, while erosion eats away at the surface over time, revealing what was once buried for millions of years. Fossils. On the ground. Billions of years old.
Moving right along.
What else you got?
We find radioactive carbon-14. Carbon-14 is found inside of diamonds. Carbon-14 that we see cannot last for more than 100,000 years. Like, that's maximum. You don't get carbon-14 to last more than 100,000 years. So why would we still see carbon-14 in diamonds? I mean, these are the hardest substance known to man. So you can't, like, oops, push carbon-14 into the diamonds and, oh, we threw some in, we soaked it in a bath of carbon-14, and that's why they're made out of carbon, some of it's radioactive carbon. If we find any radioactive carbon in diamonds, that means they're less than 100,000 years old. And we find significant amount of carbon-14 in diamonds. They can't be more than 100,000 years old. And according to the secular, I keep calling it secular, according to an old Earth interpretation, diamonds probably formed somewhere around 200 to 300 million years ago. So, we've got a big problem.
So many stupid things here. Anyway, if you look this up, all you are going to find in a cursory search is a bunch of young Earth cheering sections talking about the carbon-14 in diamonds. All of them talking out of their asses about it.
Kinky.
Oh my god, that wasn't even remotely kinky.
Bet you I'm right.
Can we just get back to where we left off?
Yes.
Let's get serious.
Thank you, ACD. This is going to come as a surprise to Eric. But diamonds are made out of carbon.
No, really.
There is going to be a fuck ton of carbon in them.
Wait, what?
That's the first thing. The second is carbon-14 has a half-life.
Yeah.
Meaning not all of it is going to vanish over 100,000 years, Eric. Not all of it's going to vanish over millions of years. That is the half part of the half-life.
Touché.
You see, these young Earth dimwits will hear the magic number of carbon-14 dating accurately for 50 to 60,000 years and somehow make up the number of double that as the vanishing point. First of all, it's literally never all gone. Second, we're talking about a thing that is quite literally the most densely packed storage for carbon-14, since most diamonds are 99.5% carbon, while you are 0.5% brain matter. The reason why is if you look at the actual science instead of the young Earth pseudoscience, you will find out that there is only trace amounts of carbon-14 in diamonds, which is what we would expect this many hundreds of thousands of years later. Real science says we would still expect to be carbon-14, just very little of it. And that is what we see. Stop lying to your listeners, Eric, and get real science behind you.
Stop getting hysterical, fatty.
What's his next thing? I'm getting annoyed.
We got rock arches in North America, and these are actually around the world. If you look at the rock arches, though, they're eroding away. They're constantly crumbling down. 43 rock arches have fallen since 1970. There's about 2,000 of these. How come we still have these arches around? If this system, if this erosional event that took these out occurred hundreds of thousands or millions of years ago to create this erosion, we shouldn't see these arches, these fragile arches that we still have today. So arches are great evidence that the Earth, North America here, is not millions of years old.
So Eric obviously doesn't understand how these form, else he wouldn't be this uneducated about it. So rock arches are natural formations that are of two classifications. Arches, bridges. And yes, there is an arbitrary difference. A bridge is water-formed while an arch is not. So what happens is a sort of ridge erodes down to what is called a fin.
Of course.
You can see these in a lot more places than you will an arch. A fin is a thinner formation of rock that protrudes out from another layer, or stands out on its own. These arches form when those fins are made of either sandstone or limestone, which is a softer kind of rock, while the harder rock is on top. The harder rock always stays put while the softer rock erodes out from under it, but the rock ends up sticking around and holding its shape in comparison to the limestone. It's very hard.
That's what she said.
I walked right into that one.
Keep going.
Okay, sounds like a plan. Arches form just as much, if not a little less, than they erode to crumble. They are fantastic things to see and truly a sight to behold. I have had the chance to see a few of them when I lived in New England, and saw small ones over the rock pools over at the end of some large beaches along Boston Harbor. But to summarize for Eric, rock arches weren't always there. Please try to refrain from your intellectual bankruptcy race with your daddy. For now, he's still winning, thankfully. ACD, can we get on with his next clip?
There's also a lack of bioturpidation. This is the tilling of the ground. Insects, worms, they burrow down into the ground and they actually stir up the soil. So they actually make it where if you had level or layered soil, they actually are constantly tilling that soil up and making it where those layers are now kind of mixed together. Insects do this all the time. Well, you would expect to see lots of this mixing as insects lived throughout the world while these layers are being formed, because you got this layer supposedly 300 million years old, this one 295 million years old, this one 290 million years old. Over millions of years you'd expect to see this bioturpidation, but we don't see that. What we see is nice, neat layers. It's as if these were laid down very quickly by water all around the world. The biblical flood makes sense of the science, of the geology that we see today.
He's starting to catch up to Daddy. So, two things. Just putting this out there. First and foremost, soil isn't rock. I think we need to put that out there for you. So, once a layer is turned into rock, or comes down and is added to the column as rock, worms and insects can't burrow into it as easy. Why I have to explain that to someone as old as Eric, I don't know. But evidently I have to. Secondly, layers of rock are indeed rapid events. At times and other times it's a slow event, but most of the time it's a rapid event. A layer of material from a mudslide or volcanic ash or whatever it is that lays it down comes in, forms a new layer over the old one. If there was soil, that might become trapped and create a layer as well. As more layers of materials are deposited, they compact under the weight until it turns solid underneath the newly deposited material. Now, Eric...
Why are you so lame?
Well, that too, but Eric, there's evidence of bioturpidation dating back over 500 million years. Worm-type species during the Cambrian and Precambrian explosion eras did it. But I think what Eric thinks is that the layers we see would have all been mixed together, when that is what we would expect to see with a flood. In a flooding event where the turbulence is high, deposited material would be in waves and dunes, much like the sand dunes in the deserts. They would not be clean, straight lines like we see. So Eric is wrong again. Surprise, surprise.
Well, that's not fair at all.
And what do you think would be fair, Audio Demon? Letting him get away with this garbage?
Maybe.
Oh my god, you are being a bit more random than usual today.
Okay, I've had one too many emotions for today.
Next clip, please.
We've got things like the Great Unconformity. I got to go to this spot where you actually get to see where creation rock, the granites and the schists, meet the judgment rock. All of a sudden, now it's layered. This is where creation and the flood meet. The foundations of the earth meet the flood layer. This layer is called the Great Unconformity because right in between those two rock layers, the layers that are not stratified, that's the granites, and then the ones that are stratified right above it, we're missing somewhere around 500 million to 1 billion years in geologic time that's been either eroded away or however you want to say it's gone. There's rock layers there that are completely missing. This makes sense with a global flood. It doesn't make sense. And this layer, by the way, is found around the world. I was just in the Wisconsin Dells. I did a movie on that. You can watch that, Operation Wisconsin Dells. It doesn't make sense in an old Earth worldview. It does make sense in a flood model, in a catastrophic model.
First of all, I love how Eric immediately asserts, without any justification, that the two time periods of this unconformity are creation and the flood. Now, there are a few places that have been referred to as the Great Unconformity. The one Eric is talking about is actually the one in the Grand Canyon. So what is an unconformity? Because he doesn't mention it. So when several layers of rock are laid down, you can use several different dating methods to see when this happened. At times, layers are set down and then eroded away just as quickly or at times faster than they went down. This allows erosion to take more layers off. The balance eventually shifts and more material is added to the column than will erode. The end result of which is a layer of rock on top of another layer with drastically different ages. So, as an example, a 500 million year old layer sits just under a 5 million year old layer, or something that sounds drastic. But in the Grand Canyon and across the United States, there is an unconformity of about 175 million years, increasing in some places to 725 million years. Now, the funny thing here is, Eric lied. He said the unconformity didn't show erosion, but it does. Thus, the vast difference in the timescales and how parts of the lower, older layers are leaning to the side, with several old layers touching the new layers.
Well, let me just say you're correct.
Now, for the fun part of all of this, to show how stupid Eric actually is, and this has to be intentional ignorance,
Let's get it started!
Eric said that the lower layers of the unconformity were made at the time of creation, so that would mean by his own lights, God made the earth not only to look older than it is, but because in those layers we see fossil remains, that God made it look like there were creatures on earth before creation. Eric said in essence that his own God intentionally deceives people.
Wait, what?
Part 2, the unconformity and his saying the layers that deep down into the Grand Canyon were soft and layering, contradicts his comments about bioturbidation, since the worms and burrowing insects would have had plenty of time to mix all those layers up after the flood, yet we still see them, so he can't have both. It doesn't make sense.
That was a flawless presentation.
Next is the rock arches and the flood. Since mud was supposed to be dropped down, there is so many rock arches made in just 4,000 years. Why are there not new ones made like every week? The fact that the rock arches are even there to have eroded away goes against his later claims of the rock layers being put down by the flood. You don't get to have your flood layers and erode it too. Where it fits your narrative, Eric.
Alrighty, job well done.
And here's the sugar on the cream.
And lastly, we can go down to the Niagara Falls bit where if this were all set down in soft mud layers, Niagara Falls would be a rapids and the waterfall would not be able to exist, since according to him, the falls are a result of the flood and not the creation. So, in short, just about all of his claims about the world as we see it today show problems for other claims he has.
Yes! Oh, bravo! Bravo!
ACD, would you please take your head out of my ass from kissing it so hard?
Shut up, dear furry!
Was I supposed to keep that a secret?
Shame on you.
Sorry, ACD. I'll keep our little love life on the down low from now on.
Not today, Satan!
Well, Satan is the boss of the demons, and I am kind of your boss, so...
Okay, fine.
Good. Anything else with a spawn of stupidity?
It's over.
Sounds good. I am Corsi, and this is the Fluffy Atheist. If you like this, pet those like and subscribe buttons. Share me with friends if you want to share a funny video, or you want to point and laugh. I'm good either way.